Guys, I'm Speedbag Bard, and today I'm going to talk about some alternate techniques and tricks that you can do with the Speedbag. Most of the emphasis of the techniques that I'm going to be talking about are going to consist of spins, twirls, and traps. This is a little bit of an uncommon branch of speedbagging because when you're speedbagging, you're mostly concerned about creating and executing a rhythm. But part of the fun of many different people who like to speedbag, including myself, we find ways to put in personal self-expression into it. And for me, I get a lot of creative freedom in deciding how to stop or at least alter the motion of the bag in a way that provides me a way to reset, but also just to show off a little bit. We'll start with the very basics for trapping. So trapping is the act of stopping the speed bag, usually in between the platform itself and one part of your body, usually your hands or your elbows. This can occur on the very back end of the platform, the front end, or even the sides right here. You'll notice that I'm using the backhand portion of my hand here and usually not the front portion. Why? Because this gives me a little bit of margin for me to fold my fingers in towards itself. So that way, if I do push it against it, at least my fingers have the option to absorb some of that recoil and force by curling inwards. If you do it with your palm forward, then there's not really much action for you to absorb that recoil other than, testing your own flexibility of your hand. And for the same reason, that's why I usually like trapping on the front side of the platform with the backhand as well. This will allow you to curl your fingers a little bit to help absorb some of that recoil so you don't get that reverberation. Compared to, there's not a lot of reverberation going on when I trap it this way versus if I did it. You heard a little bit of that, right? The reason why I trap it this way is really for making it as easy as possible and also to reduce injury. Because with boxer style, when you trap it like this, there is a danger for you to either, hit with the wrong part of your hand, injure or even fracture your hands. I'd rather do something that's a little bit wimpier, but much more safer for control. Technically you can do sides too, but I usually find that frontwards and backwards style traps are usually easier for transitioning into your normal striking patterns here, because most of your hitting patterns usually are going to be on the front side or the back side of the bag. Let's talk about spins a little bit. So spins, when you convert the momentum of the speed bag into a spin. So as of late, I like, again, doing those with the backside portion of my hand, because not only does it help, I get a little bit of room to kind of help absorb that recoil by either tensing or relaxing my fingers or even curling it in a little bit. But this also allows me a couple of cool options to show off. For example, like that. Let me slow that down. So I ride the momentum of the speed bag using the spin, and then I guide my arm so that way the speed bag glides along my arm and then finally perches onto my elbow, kind of like a parrot or a bird landing on a pirate's shoulder or arm, or a bird landing on a falconer's arm. Yeah, I like that analogy better. Same thing here. Yeah, that's one way. Or if you another thing that you can do, forehand spins are perfectly good. They look nice. But even with the spin, there is a lot of delicacy. There's a lot of variations that you can do. You can even do inside of your palm here. And this will give a nice little bit of rotation and just kind of, it'll glide outwards more versus if you have a more controlled spin. you can dictate how much momentum that you want to either conserve or just to expand with the spin. So like, so there's something a little bit more controlled, and then that's something a little bit more crazier. Reason why this is good, so you can do some pretty nice motions here. Ah yes, that's what I'll go to next. So that's combining the motion of the spin with trapping the speedbag. And the reason why I like this variation is because the initial spin allows you to slow down the momentum of the speedbag, and also for you to kind of control and let it glide around your hand like an axis. And then from that point, you can just guide it into trap. Or you can just even isolate the spin and then just trap like that. You can even use, rather than using your whole backside of your hand, you can even use just like the 2 fingers here, because then this will give you a little bit more variation and delicacy to control some of the smaller movements like that. Last thing I'll talk about here is the twirl. So twirls, usually you can twirl it around counterclockwise or clockwise. Some of the ways that I like to set those up is usually to trap on one side and then use the opposite hand to impart force onto the speedbag and send it into one direction. Same thing, you can do it with the opposite side too, like that. And also another option for trapping, but I recommend you do this slowly. Use your fingers in a longhorn formation, and then this will plant the speedbag in between your fingers, so now you can then twirl it counterclockwise or clockwise. Of course, you know, with the right hand it's easier to go out and away from your body. Same thing with your left hand, you can do it that way too. Alright, and then of course you can trap. So let's just explore some options here. So spin, trap, twirl. Let me slow that down. Spin, trap, and then I use these 2 fingers to just impart force there, and then you can also trap again. And then you can also use your elbows to do some trapping as well too. Oops. Right. Another option too with spins, you can bring in your opposite side hand so you can actually manually stop the ball here. Same thing there. Yeah. Right. And then of course, when you trap with the ball, especially on the front side of that, you can even curl in your hands as if you're scooping with your palm. So you can catch the ball that way. That's another option. So these are just some different ways that you can play around and manipulate the momentum and direction of the speedbag. And these are just nice little brain teasers that you can do to kind of more feel the control of the bag. These aren't necessarily meant to be practiced at full speed. Rather, these techniques will shine with a little bit of a slower tempo and articulation, because it'll give you time to reflect on what you want to do, especially if you've been doing a faster passage and then you want to break, and then you want to provide yourself a little bit of respite and rest, as well as just to kind of explore. Feel free to play around with this. and make sure to have fun, okay?